ETL. What ETL stands for? ETL stands for extract, transformation and load. And let's cover what are the major and important questions that we have in ETL interview questions. So the very first common question is, what is the difference between ETL testing versus the DB testing, or we can call it database testing. So if we compare both of them and we keep ETL testing at the left and DB as the right, we can see that in ETL testing we are basically targeting for business intelligence, and business intelligence reporting is at the top. Whereas in DB testing the goal is to integrate the data. In ETL, business flow environment based on earlier data. So business has the data in which the data is flowing as per the earlier data, whereas in DB it is applicable to business flow systems. In ETL testing we use tools like Informatica Cognos for development of ETL and reporting, and for automation we use query search. Whereas for DB testing, QTP and Selenium tools for automation are there. They are mainly for app testing and web automation, but in DB testing we will use different databases like SQL Server, MySQL and Oracle. In ETL we are analyzing data, and analyzing data may have potential impact. In DB testing the architectural implementation involves very high impact. We have dimensional model following in ETL, we have entity relationship model following in DB. Analytics are processed in ETL and transactions are processed in DB. In ETL we normally have the denormalized data, and in DB we have the normalized data. What is denormalized, what is normalized, this we will be covering in detail when we will be doing our entire course. But these are the crux questions or the crux pointers that we can have to answer the problem of ETL versus DB testing. Let's move on to the next question, guys. What exactly do you mean by ETL? So if you are doing an entry level into an IT organization, into an ETL project, this is a favorite question. So we have to answer like ETL stands for extract, transform, load, and is widely regarded as one of the essential testing in the data warehouse architectures. Its main task is to handle data management for the business process, which is complex and is useful to the business in many ways. Extracting simple means regarding the data from a database. Transformation means converting the data into a form that is suitable for analysis and reporting primarily. The load on the other side handles the process of writing and managing the data into the database, which users want to target comparatively more simply. So this is what we have to explain in ETL. Next question is that there is a group of parameters that direct the server regarding the movement of the data from the source to the target. What is it called? That is called a session, guys. We call that as session. Next question is, do we have any idea about ETL testing and the operations that are part of the same? So guys, for that we will say that there are many important tasks that are opted in this. It simply means verifying the data in terms of its transformation in the correct or the right manner as per the needs of a business. It also includes the verification of the projected data. The users can also check whether the data is successfully loaded into the warehouse or not without worrying about the loss of the data, because that is taken care in the ETL testing. The improvement in scalability as well as the performance can also be assured from this directly. In addition to this, ETL simply replaces the default values which are not always or majorly useful to the users. So these are the basic operations that you can mention while giving this answer. How can you put Power Center different from the Power Mart? So guys, Power Mart is good to be considered only when the data processing requirements are comparatively low. On the other hand, the Power Center can simply process the bulk time in a very short span of time, bulk load or bulk data in a very short span of time. Power Center can easily support ERP such as SAP, while no support of the same is available on the ERP in the contrary. The local repository can be supported by the Mart, while the Center cannot perform this task reliably. So there are pros and cons in both Mart and the Center. However, when we have to go with the volume of data, then we will prefer to go with Power Center. Next question is, what is partitioning in ETL? The transactions are always needed to be divided for better performance. The same processes are known as partitioning. It simply makes sure that the server can directly access the source through multiple connections. Guys, what happens is that, for example, you have data on the basis of date, okay, and on daily average basis, you are getting millions and millions of data. So it becomes very difficult, if we store this data just like that in a table. So it is better if we partition it. So how will we partition? The best thing is to partition on the basis of the date. So date partitioning is applied. Then we have different kind of partitioning like static, dynamic, that we will be covering in the course. But partitioning is a very important. So if this question is there, we need to answer it more accurately and more smartly. Name a few tools that one can use with ETL. So the answer is, there are many tools that can be considered. However, it is not always necessary that a user needs all of them at the same time. Which tool is used basically depends on the preference and the task that needs to be accomplished. Some of the commonly used ones are Oracle, Cognos, SAS, ETL SQL Server, SAS Business Warehouse, Oracle, MySQL, to name a few. So guys, which tool is to be used is decided in the architecture of the project. The senior solution architects will decide, and once they are decided, then those tools are brought into the system. Next question is, what do you understand by the term fact in ETL and what are the different types of fact? Basically, it is regarded as a federal component that generally belongs to a model that has multiple dimensions. The same can also be used when it comes to considering the measures that belong to analyzation. The facts are generally useful for providing the dimensions that largely matters in the ETL. The commonly used type of facts in ETL are semi-additive facts, additive facts, and non-additive facts. So guys, this is a very detailed answer, but to make you understand, fact is basically a fact. Any numerical thing is a fact. So a table which have only the numerical figures, it is called a fact table. That's it. Okay. We will be again covering this a lot in detail in our course. Our entire data warehousing is dependent upon facts, dimensions, and measures. So we will be dealing with this. Next question is, what do you exactly know about the tracing level and the types of the same? So there are file logs and there is a limit on them when it comes to sorting data in them. The tracing level is nothing but the amount of data that can be easily stored on the same. These levels clearly explain the tracing levels and in a manner that provides all the necessary information regarding the same. There are two types, one is verbose and one is normal. So tracing becomes necessary when we are tracing the logs. Next question is, do you think that data warehouse and data mining is different from one another? How the same can be associated with the warehousing applications? Guys, the warehousing applications that are important generally include the analytical processes, information processing, as well as data mining. There are actually a very large number of predictive that needs to be extracted from the database with a huge amount of data. The warehousing sometimes depends upon the mining for the operations involved. Data mining is useful for the analytical process while the other is not. The data can simply be aggregated from the sources that are different, though the warehousing approach, while the same, is not possible in case of mining. So guys, they are interrelated and they are separate at the same time. So data warehousing and data mining stands for this. Next question is, do we have any information regarding the grain of a fact? Now this is, if you ask me personally, it's a very basic but still a deep level question. So highlight this question guys, it may be asked in the interview. The fact information can be stored at a level that is known as grain fact. The other name of this fact, that is the other name of the grain of fact granularity. It is possible for the users to change the name of the same when the need for the same is realized. there are multiple files that are associated with the same, and the users can use this for changing the name of them directly. So this is what we call grain of a fact, guys. Now next question that we have is it possible to load the data and use it as a source? The answer is yes. In ETL it is very much possible. This task can be accomplished simply by using the cache. The users must make sure that the cache is free and is generally optimized before it is used for this task. At the same time, the users simply make sure that the desired outcomes can simply be assured without making a lot of effort. So yes, it is possible to make it as a source. Again, this question is very important, guys. Please mark it. It is highly probable that this question can be asked. What is a factless fact table in ETL? So that is defined as a table without the measures in the ETL. Okay? Without the measures in the ETL. There are a number of events that can be managed directly with the same. It can also record events that are related to the employees or with the management, and this task can be accomplished in a very reliable manner. So the main line is very important. It is a table which is without the measures and it only have the keys into it. Again, we will be covering this in detail over the course. What exactly do we mean by transformation and what are the types of same? So it is basically regarded as a repository object which is capable to produce the data and can even modify and pass it in a reliable manner. The two commonly used transformations are active and passive, guys. Next question we have that what is exact purpose of ETL according to you? So it's a very subjective question and we have to be very smart while answering. So we can say that it is actually very beneficial for the extraction of the data and from the systems that are based on legacy. So we can just straightforward say this. Next question is, can you define measures in a simple statement? Well, they are called the number data, which is generally based on the columns and is generally present in a fact table by default. As I explained you the fact table has measures. What are they? They are basically the numeric data that we have. So again, it has been reiterated over here. When you will make use of the lookup transformation? Now this is also a very highlight question. Please prepare it, guys, with me. So it is one of the finest and in fact one of the very powerful approaches in ETL. It simply makes sure that the users can get a related value from a table and with the help of a column value that seems useless. In addition to this, it simply makes sure of boosting the performance of dimension table, which is changing at a very slow rate. Also, there are situations when the records already remain present in the table. Dealing with such issues can be made possible with the help of lookup transformation. So again, this is what we have about our lookup transformation. What do we understand by data purging? So there are needs and situations when the data needs to be deleted from the system. It is a very daunting task and the delete has to happen in bulk. The purging is an approach that can delete multiple files and data at the same time and enable users to maintain speed as well as efficiency. A lot of extra space can be created simply with this. It is just like, guys, we are freeing up our space by deleting the unwanted stuff. So it's just like that. This is also very important task in systems today. Can you tell something about bus schema? So dimension identification is something that is very important in the ETL and the same is largely handled in the bus schema. So schemas, different kind of schemas. What are schemas? Again, we will deep dive into our course, guys. Next is, are you familiar with the dynamic and static cache? The answer is, when it comes to updating the master table, the dynamic cache option can be opted. Also, the users are free to use it for changing their dimensions. On the other side, the users can simply manage the flat files through the static cache. It is very much possible to deploy both dynamic and static cache at the same time depending upon the task and the overall complexity of the final outcome. What do we mean by staging area? So the answer is, it's an area that is used when it comes to holding the information or the data temporarily on the server that controls the data project. There are certain steps that are included and the prime one among them is surrogate assignments. So staging area again is pretty highlighted area Very important topic, we will cover in detail in the ETL. Extraction is not possible without this staging area, guys. So next question that we have are, what are types of partitioning we are familiar with? So we have basically, normally you can say there are two kind of partitioning you are aware of, hash and round robin. What they are, again we will deep dive in our course. Can you tell a few benefits of using the data reader destination adapter? The answer is, there are ADO record sets that generally consists of columns and records. When it comes to populating them in a simple manner, the data reader destination adapter is very useful. It simply exposes the data flow and let the users impose various restrictions on the data, which is required in many cases. Next question is it possible to extract the SAP data with the help of Informatica? So the answer is, there is a Power Connect option that simply lets the users perform this task, and in a very reliable manner. It is necessary to import the source code in the analyzer before one accomplish this task. Next is, what do you mean by the term map it? The answer is, this is an approach useful for creating or arranging the different sets in the transformation. It simply let user accomplish other tasks also that largely matters and are related to the data warehouse. Next question is, what are the commercial ETL tools? So there are many, the list is very big and it is increasing day by day, but you can name some of them like Ab Initio, Adaptia, Business Objects, Data Service, Informatica Power Center, Body, DB Softlab, SSIS, Data Stage, and many more, Talent, and many more. So the list is ever growing today. Metallion, the list is too big, guys. You can name the top ones which you have worked on. Can you explain the fact table? The data warehouse fact table is the central table of the star schema, and as we have already covered, it contains measures which are basically the numeric values or numeric facts. What are the types of measures? So there are mainly three types of measures: additive measures, semi-additive measures, and non-additive measures. Additive measures are those that can be joined across any dimensions of the fact table. Semi-additive measures are those that can be joined across only some of the dimensions of the fact table. Non-additive measures are those that cannot be joined across any dimensions of the fact table. So these are basically three types of measures that we have. Give a brief on grain of fact. We already covered this, but let's mention it again. Grain fact functionality defined as a level stage where the fact information will be stored, also called fact granularity. Defined transformation. So in ETL, transformation involves data cleansing, sorting the data, combining or merging, applying the business rules to the data for improving the data for quality and accuracy in the ETL processes. So this transformation is the T of the ETL, guys. What is lookup transformation? The lookup transformation accomplished looks up by joining information in input columns with columns in a reference data set. You can utilize the lookup to get extra data in a related table that basically depends upon the values in the common columns. Next question is it possible to update the table using the SQL service? The answer is yes. It is actually possible, and the users can perform this task simply and in fact without worrying about anything. The users generally have several options to accomplish this task easily. The methods that can be helpful in this matter are useful as a staging table using a SQL command, using MS SQL, as well as using the cache. So it's just, yes, we can use the SQL service for updating the table. How can one define a workflow? So basically, guys, it is a group that contains the instructions that let the server perform the executions related tasks. So that is what is workflow. We can define it. Next is tell one basic difference between the connected lookup and the unconnected lookups. So guys, mapping is common in the connected lookups while it is not so common in the unconnected lookups. It is only used in the unconnected lookup only when the function is already defined. There are several values that can be returned from the connected lookup while the unconnected lookup has a strict upper limit on the same. So that is basic difference between connected and unconnected lookups. Tell something about the data source view and how is it significant. So there are several analysis services databases that largely depend on the relational schema, and the prime task of the data source is to define the same. They are also helpful in creating the cubes and dimensions with the help of which the users can set the dimensions in a very easy manner. Next we have what are the objects in schema. So guys, there are basically considered the logical structures that are related to the data. They generally contain tables, views, synonyms, clusters, as well as function packages. In addition to this, there are several database links that are present to them. So that stands to the objects in the schema. The next is what are ETL cubes in ETL and how they are different from that of OLAP. So guys, there are things on which the data processing depends largely, and cubes are one among them. They are generally regarded as the units of the same that provide useful information regarding the dimensions and fact tables. When it comes to multi-dimensions analysis, the same can simply be assured from this. On the other side, the online analytics processing stores large data in the dimensions that are more than one. This thing is generally done for making the reporting process more smooth and more reliable. All the facts in it are categorized, and this is exactly what makes them easy to understand. Again, we would be covering OLAP a lot in detail in our course, guys. Again, we have the same question of unconnected versus the connected lookups. So the same is here in the format of a table. So in connected, either dynamic or static cache used. In unconnected, only static cache used. In connected, we can return multiple rows from the same row. In unconnected, we can return only one output port. In connected, it supports user-defined values. In unconnected, it won't support user-defined values. In connected, we can pass any number of values to another transformation. In unconnected, we can pass one output value to one transformation. In connected, cache has lookup columns that are used in the mapping, and in unconnected, cache has all the lookups or output ports of lookup conditions and return the ports. So this we have already covered earlier. That was basically on the theoretical differences. Here we have mentioned the same in tabular format. So whichever is easier and convenient for you, you can go with the same. Again, what is bus schema? So in data warehouse, bus schema is used for identifying the most common dimensions in the business process. In other words, it's a definite dimension and a standardized equivalent of facts. What data purging means is the next question. So data purging, common word that is used in data warehousing for deleting or erasing data from the storage. Next we have is schema objects mean. So schema objects can be defined as logical structures, whereas DB stores the schema object logically within a database table space. Schema objects can be the tables, clusters or views or sequences or indexes, functioning packages and DB links. And the next question is, can you brief the term maplet, session, workflow and worklet? So maplet is a reusable object that contains a set of transformations. Worklet represents set of workflow tasks. Workflow is called customs the tasks for each record that needs to be executed, and session is a set of instructions that instructs how to flow the data to the target. So guys, these are some important interview questions that we have in ETL, and by this you can understand how deep, how diverse and how critical ETL is, and how critical is the ETL testing in any data object, in any data project, which is a combination of databases, data warehouses, reportings, transformations, extractions and loading. So guys, in our course of ETL testing, we will be covering it in detail, where we would be going through all these areas, which like preparations about ETL testing overview. We would be understanding overviews about it, the life cycle about it, the architecture about it, OLTP, OLAP. Then we will be having some hands-on exercises and assignment questions along with some quizzes. Then we will be going on to the data warehousing concepts, like what are entity relationship models, ELT versus ETL, data transformations, physical data models and all such cases. Then we would be going to the transformations overview, like what all different kind of transformations we have, like aggregator, filter, lookup, normalizer, rank and so on. Next we will be going with the ETL testing scenarios, like data warehouse workflow, ETL mapping, metadata testing. Then the ETL testing categories like system migration, change, report testing. Then we will be going with this correctness, completeness, quality. Then we will be going with the ETL tester's role, what are the roles and what are the different scripts. Then we shall be going with the reports and cube testing. Then we shall be going with the different kind of databases, clients, workflows, building queries for BI support, flat file source to flat file and relational targets and so on guys. And then at the end we would be try to have some project support also. So in this course of ETL testing guys, we will be going through 3 phases. First phase is of beginner, second phase is of intermediate and third phase is of advanced. So this is going to be our path in our goal of attaining the mastery in ETL testing. And once you have covered this, it will be very easy for you to get into an IT organization and also survive in the same guys. So guys, that's it for today. Let's catch up in our next videos. Let's catch up in our next sessions. Till then, goodbye and best of luck guys. Thank you and take care.